People all around the world are wondering why the European countries are collapsing so fast, or why their government had collapsed, and why they can't find a solution to slow this down or stop it, to stop further collapse or bankruptcy. German government, for example, the economy had collapsed, they are in debt and bankrupt and at the verge of recession, if they are not already in recession, because they don't like to tell us things like this, right? The French economy is in debt. The government collapsed a few weeks ago when the prime minister resigned. I heard Emmanuel Macron reappointed the prime minister yesterday, the 11th of October 2025. Well, that is not the topic for today. The topic for today is just to find out the reason why the European countries are collapsing and they can't find a solution to stop it. France is going through the worst times in history. The EU as an organization had failed and they are bankrupt and they can't find a solution for whatever reason. So what happened all of a sudden? Why has the EU, the United States, and a few other top European countries themselves find themselves in financial crisis and at the verge of economic recession? Why? Now, there are two factors that I believe contribute to this problem, to the downfall of the EU and the United States financially and economically. The first reason is the fact that many West African countries had pushed the United States and the EU out of African continent. All the billions upon billions they've been getting free of charge from Africa is no more. That lifeline of those billions had been cut short. All of a sudden, don't get me wrong, we still have some African countries that still bend over for the EU and the West to stick everything in their behind. But many West African countries had taken control of their wealth and their economy. The second reason I can think is the fact that the West miscalculated in the quest to weaken Russia or to fight Russia. They miscalculated badly, very badly. They thought Russia was Libya or Iraq or Syria. They were wrong. They overstepped their boundary and wasted hundreds and hundreds of billions, if not trillions, to be honest, because they give all these figures. They say 600 billion, 700 billion, but most of us don't believe it. They spent more than that in this proxy war against Russia. In this section of this video we're going to discuss today, I will focus on the EU and especially France to the first point I mentioned earlier, where I said they've been pushed out of Africa by most African countries. As an African, it doesn't matter what part of Africa you're from. Let me remind you this. It is a very painful history of what was happening that most of you don't know. Because they say information is power and information is knowledge. And we learn every day. So I don't blame anybody. If you didn't know about this, I don't blame you. But again, every single day that goes by, we are learning as human, right? Did you know, if you're an African or if you're a non-African, let me tell you a very sad story. Did you know, up till the time Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali took charge of their economy, before then, 14 African former French colonies were paying what they called the colonial tax to French government. After colonizing them, France conditioned them and forced them to continue paying colonial tax. This money, it sounds funny and sound easy, colonial tax, right? That money they were paying every single year added up to 500 billion US dollars annually, every year. 14 former French colonies in West Africa and beyond. They were paying 500 billion US dollars, maybe more, every single year in what they call the colonial tax. Now, this is not buying and selling. This is not doing businesses. No, this is collecting colonial tax from 14 African countries. These countries include Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. These countries were paying colonial tax to France. The money they were paying in total every single year amounted to 500 billion US dollars. France was literally getting 85% of whatever all those former colonies of French were earning every year. So you can imagine, you make money from your country as a country, and 85% of your annual income or your annual revenue goes to a different country in the Western world. How sad is that? How sad is that? So you're living on basically like 15% of what you have worked for. The rest is being paid to some country that colonized you centuries ago. Now they want you to return apparently what they call the money they built African countries with. France is living the dream, keeping 85% of what those 14 African countries were getting annually. As a result of this, most of these African countries face and are living in terrible financial difficulties. And guess what? Guess what? The funny part is, the most funny part and the most painful part is, they have to borrow some of the money they give to France back to feed, dear Lord, to feed their own family and to run their economy in form of loan with interest to be paid on it when they're paying it back. And I don't think you understand what I just said. They have to borrow their own money, the money they give to France, when they need it, because they're facing financial difficulties up to tomorrow. When they need some of those money back to fix problem in their country, the French banks give them those money in terms of loan with interest to be paid on it when they're paying back. Now, again, not like they can just walk into the bank and go, you know what, sir, I want to get 50% of what I gave to you last year because, you know, my economy, my country is struggling, so we need some money back from you to fix problem. No, it's not like that. You go into the bank, you fill paperwork, they scrutinize the paperwork, go through your paperwork, ask you what you need your money for, and then they'll decide if they'll give you or not. Then you cannot request for up to 20%. If you request for up to 20%, that application is denied immediately. And it's bye-bye, you can go. No money for you. No, I said no money, no loan for you. You see the sad reality of what Africa is going through? Can you even believe this modern slavery Africans are going through? Shocking. They collect money from you 100% in billions with no condition. They get all the money for you, then you must pay that money. If they want to give you like 5% of it as a loan, you must pay interest on it. That colonial tax must be paid or you face consequences. While you are doing this, your own country as an African country is getting financially struggled. You're struggling financially. You can't feed your own people. There's no employment. There's no development. There's no infrastructure. But then You are working for the colonial masters. Wow. And then you go to the French bank, you say, yo, hey, I'm struggling, yeah? My people are struggling. I need to feed my people. We need to build infrastructure. We need to build we need to build schools. We need to build hospitals. We need money for this, that, that. Can I get some money back? And then the French bank goes, okay, that's fine. We can lend you some money, but we need proof of what you want to use that money for. We need proof that your people are dying. We need proof that you want to build education. We need, proper paperwork to be filled out before you can get that money. Now, let's say you're lucky and you provided all those documents they requested for. You provided all the evidence they requested for. Then the next stage will be you cannot request for up to 20% of the money you give to them. Once you request for up to 20%, your application is denied, and that is it. No money for you. Do you know what the French government claimed, or why the French government claimed they were forcing these 14 African countries to pay this colonial tax? They claim it was the money France spent in building infrastructures in those countries centuries ago. Okay, if you didn't hear that, let me say it again. France claimed the reason why they are collecting this colonial tax from the 14 African countries is the money France spent to build those countries and build infrastructures in those countries during the time they were colonizing them centuries ago. Now Africa has woken up. Thank goodness Africa woke up. Most of the French colonies had stopped paying that money. Hallelujah. They stopped paying that money. They decided to kick France out of their country. Losing 500 billion is not a joke. That was the French government lifeline. Africa cut them off completely. Go. Enough is enough. We've paid enough colonial tax. You see, when that situation between Niger, Burkina Faso, and other countries was happening, nobody actually mentioned this. People thought it was just about pushing France away from Africa because maybe they hate France or they don't like the French government or the French people. No, the bottom line is there was a lot of things going on under that they didn't tell you. But now, thank goodness, we now know what was happening. Having said that, having said most of the African countries have taken control, most of the West African countries had decided to take control of their money, of their economy, and everything they do. They've taken control of it. Having said that, not all African countries are waking up. Some are still sleeping. Some are still being ignorant. And some are just confused. They don't know if they're going forward, if they are coming, or if they don't know what they're doing. They're just floating all over the place. But what is your country doing as an African? Or as an African nation, or as an African country? What has your country done to take back control? It was bad timing for Europe. Very bad timing for Europe. Because at the same time, they went into war with Russia. You remember what Vladimir Putin said at the beginning of the Ukraine war, right? If you forget, let me remind you, that is why people like myself, I'm here. I will remind you exactly what Vladimir Putin said at the beginning of the Ukraine war. Vladimir Putin said he would cut the source of European income and starve them financially. Guess what? Vladimir Putin referred to European source of income. Guess what he referred to as the European source of income? Africa. Vladimir Putin knew the milk, the bread and butter of European lifeline is Africa. And he knew if he can cut that source of income, if he can shift, or if he can wake African countries up, Europe will become weak and bankrupt. And guess what we are witnessing right now? Guess what we're witnessing right now? I don't have to tell you that, do I? Vladimir Putin said Africa can feed half of the world with their natural resources. I don't really think some of you took that statement seriously, or you even elaborated or thought about it. Vladimir Putin said Africa can feed half of the world, which means Africa should not be struggling. Africa should be okay. Africa should be one of the richest, blessed continents in the world. But what is going on with Africa today? Bad leadership, bad politician. Business is not as usual, because business with Africa and the West is more like 10% to African countries, 90% to the West. And the West brings nothing to the table. They bring nothing to the table, but they get every single thing. They get every single thing. Let me give you an example. For example, let me say Nigeria for an example. You go to a cocoa farm, yeah? You see one of the I'll call it one of the pop of cocoa, right? Do you know how many products you can make from just that one pop of cocoa? You can make chocolate. You can make coffee. You can make medicine. You can make 1,000,001 product just from that one cocoa pop, right? What is Africa supposed to be doing? Let me give you an example or an advice. Africa is supposed to tell the West, listen, you want to do business with us? Okay, we are happy to do business with you, but this cocoa pop is going to be produced, and it is going to be, the product will be done here in Africa, and then you can ship it to your country. You understand? Then Africa cannot be cheated, because that will lead to employment. That will lead to, building of infrastructures, companies, technologies, and so on and so forth. Because these countries will have no choice than to build those technological whatever in Africa. They will have to employ African citizens. People will be happy. There will be jobs. The government in Africa will get more taxes in their pocket. They will make more money. Business will be 50-50. But look at all the goat we call our own politicians in Africa. You know what they do? They give the whole cocoa pop to the European leader. Take it, go and do it in your country. They sell one of those cocoa pop. I hope I'm calling it right though. Like it's pop, yeah? Cocoa pop. You know what I mean, right? They sell one, like for example, they sell one of it for $5 or £5. And the Western people go, oh yeah, thank you so much. They take that one cocoa pop for £5, yeah? Or $5. Take it back overseas. Break it down to pieces. Make 1 million products from that one cocoa pop. And then come back to Africa to sell one of the 1 million products they made from that cocoa pot for 1,000, for example, £1,000. Now, I'm just trying to make an instance here. I'm just trying to give you an example of what I mean, okay? They buy them for £5, they come back and sell it back to you for £1,000. And that is one product out of the 1 million product they made from that one pop. And the people wonder why they can't afford medicine. They wonder why the European world is like heaven. Why everything is so smooth and easy. But you forget, the raw material, the natural resources they used to build that thing they brought back to you to pay a staggering amount for was taken from your land. Africa wake up. Ladies and gentlemen, now you understand why the downfall of Europe and United States is just beginning, and it will continue. Now United States is very clever because they are looking for other ways to mitigate the effect of what they've lost in Africa. And Europe, they are going for Venezuela. That will be an update I will do next. So what do you guys think generally on this one? They say Africa are paying the colonial tax. Now that money stopped. Look where Europe found themselves.